UFC 311 happens this Saturday, January 18th. It's going to be Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan. I'm going to be going through the entire event, starting with the early prelims. We're going to end with the main event. I'm just going to be giving my predictions on who I think is going to win each fight. And this is from a casual's perspective. So I'm going to start with just going based off of their last fight, who I think is going to win. Now, obviously, as we go higher up the card and we come to more popular fighters, I'll be able to give a more in-depth analysis. But for all the undercards, that's just going to be from the fights that I've seen, which is typically their last fight. So we're going to start with that early prelim, the opener of Ulanbekov versus Carpenter. Now, Ulanbekov, very well-rounded fighter, nice strikes, a very good jab. He's got good reflexes. He's got good timing. His ground game is really solid. He's got nice sub attempts. Carpenter, scrappy fighter who goes through the fire, land his shots. He's got really good takedowns due to his timing and his commitment to like the pressure and the takedowns. Once he has you down, his pressure is really effective. It's hard to get him off of you, especially if you don't have as good of a ground game. He does have a chin, but to get in and land his takedowns, he does take some heavy shots. Ulanbekov, I think, will have success with the jab, but he does let himself get hit when he feels like he's having success. I think Ulanbekov will be able to take the fight by finish or sub, though, just because of his striking is a lot better than Carpenter's, and Carpenter, shorter fighter, relies more on his wrestling, so I think that Ulanbekov will be able to hold his own and take the fight by finish or sub. Moving up, we've got the next fight of Ricky Turcios versus Bernardo Sopai. Turcios, aggressive striker, decent takedown defense, solid hard kicks, and he's always trying to work. His last fight, he came up short against the wrestling of Raul Rosas Jr., but he did reverse him a couple times, had him in some trouble early in the fight, but Raul Rosas was just able to grind him out. Bernardo Sopai, great jiu-jitsu guy, good strikes, good groundwork. He's a guy, it's very impressive to watch him work because he doesn't try to force his submissions when he has someone down. But when he's got them in a position and they try to get out of that position, he just transitions into a new one that they like, a new opportunity that they provide from them trying to escape his original attempt. And so he just works off of the mistakes that he makes his opponents make, and it's very impressive to watch. He came up short in his last fight because he got caught, got rocked, and then ultimately got stopped. But up until getting caught, I thought he was winning the fight very, very comfortably, and he just ended up losing to somebody who didn't have any quit in them, was able to land some hard strikes, and, that is what it is. Kind of sucks, but, it's a fight game. It's what's going to happen. I'm going to lean towards Sopai taking the fight he's got with his striking and his ground game. Moving up, we got Rinya Nakamura versus Muin Gafarov. Nakamura, relentless pressure wrestler, great top control and ground and pound. His last fight, he faced a really good jiu-jitsu player in Carlos Vera. And Carlos Vera did a lot of good work to keep Rinya Nakamura from executing his game plan, getting him in the wrestling, and then getting beat up on the ground just by trying to land a leg lock, a lot of scrambles. There was a very good showing by Carlos Vera, but he just wasn't able to do anything because of Nakamura's top pressure. Just kept him on the back the entire time. He was on the defensive the entire time. And Rinya Nakamura ended up winning by decision. Gafarov, pretty well-rounded fighter. His last fight had him being controlled quite a bit by takedowns and wrestling. And I know he won the fight, but just seeing how he was able to be controlled and the level that Nakamura is at, I think that Nakamura is a far better wrestler than Gafarov's last opponent, and he's a lot younger than Gafarov's last opponent. And I think he'll be able to show Gafarov on the ground and even potential to finish him on the ground with some ground and pound. So I'm going to lean towards a Nakamura finish. Moving up, we got Karol Rosa versus Aylin Perez. Karol Rosa, good stand-up fighter, pretty heavy punches, kicks are nice and solid. She keeps a really steady pace throughout the fight. And as her opponent starts to slow down, she keeps the same pace and starts to really overtake the fight in the second half. Aylin Perez, strong grappler and a submission artist. I think that Karol Rosa has the skills to keep from getting submitted by Perez. And then unless Perez has really improved her striking, I think Rosa might take this fight, but it's women's MMA. It's a 50-50 every time. Grant Dawson, Diego Ferreira. Grant Dawson, wrestler, decent striking. He's got great takedown timing, and that leads him to land his ground and pound on the ground. Ground and pound on the ground. Stupid. He's pretty big for the division. Seems like a really strong guy. Ferreira, really good striker with a strong ground game. His losses, he's a veteran, bit older, but his losses are against guys who are strong players in the division. And he really does have the experience to outlast his opponent, but he is getting up there in age. And the lightweight division is just one of those divisions where even though a fighter might look good his last fight, they just seem to age in between the timing of their next fight, you know? That said, I do think that Ferreira will be able to pull it off, so I'm going to lean towards a Ferreira win. Moving up, we've got Zach Reese versus Azamat Bekhoev. So Zach Reese, relentless, come-forward guy, great strikes, good wrestling. He's got good takedowns, and he doesn't smother his work when he has somebody hurt, which is a huge skill that I think a lot of fighters are lacking currently. Bekhoev is an LFA fighter. He's got great wrestling. He's got real power in his hands, too. And I think this fight is a 50-50. I think if Reese can keep the distance because he is like the longer fighter and land his shots, I think he can hurt Bekhoev and take the fight. But I wouldn't be surprised if Bekhoev is able to get himself on the inside and land some hard shots and finish Zach Reese either. So it's a real 50-50, but I'm going to lean towards a Zach Reese win. Next up, we've got Jailton Almeida versus Sergey Spivak. Jailton Almeida, if you don't know, he's a really good submission guy, wrestler in the heavyweight division. He's got good submissions. The only interruption he's had with his run was with blades. But other than that, he's able to take down these other non-athletic heavyweights. And I expect him to be back in that top contender discussion soon. Sergey Spivak is a really good heavyweight. He's got quick hands, a little bit of a ground game. I think if Spivak can keep the distance and land his strikes, he has a chance of winning because I think he is the taller, longer guy. But Almeida is pretty relentless when it comes to the wrestling. If he's able to get Spivak down, I think he'll be able to keep Spivak there for the rest of the round, if not submit him either. So I'm going to lean towards Almeida for this fight. Really wouldn't be surprised if Spivak can land his shots and take the W, though. So next up, Peyton Talbot versus Raoni Barcelos. So Talbot, young up-and-comer, heavy hands. He's got really good takedown defense, and he's got really nice reflexes. His last fight was a single punch KO in like the first 30 seconds. Really impressive. And all of his fights before that is just him, getting his work done. He might take a few hits here and there, but he uses his reflexes a lot to avoid taking too much damage. And then he's got heavy hands. Barcelos is a vet. Good strikes, decent ground game, but I think his age is catching up to him. Last fight was a bit of a war. But I think if Talbot's able to land the shots that he landed or that he got landed by his last opponent, I think that Talbot's going to stop Barcelos. So I'm going to lean towards a Talbot win by a finish. And, I'm really high on Talbot. I think he's probably one of the more exciting prospects in the up-and-coming. I just wish he would fight more. I think he should have fought a lot sooner, especially considering his last fight was 30 seconds. But anyway, that's a different topic. Moving up, we've got Bogdan Guskov versus Billy Elikana. Guskov, striker. He's got okay takedown defense. He uses a lot of feints, but he does hesitate sometimes when he should commit, and that ends up with him getting caught. But he does have a solid chin, so it's not too concerning. He's got enough wrestling knowledge to survive in bad positions, but his cardio might be an issue. His last fight had him huffing and puffing in the second round before he got the finish. Elikana, rangy striker, likes to keep the distance. He's got kicks that are pretty strong. He likes to throw shots at range, and he backs up using leaning back as his defense. I think that Guskov can probably catch him and potentially stop him, so I'm going to lean towards a Guskov finish. Kevin Holland versus De Ridder. I think most people know who Holland is. Striker. He looks to entertain during his fights to get those bonuses. And that in turn has led him to have kind of a weakness against grapplers. It's not something that he's worked on a lot, it seems. So anybody who's really well versed in some ground game typically has a pretty big advantage against him. But when he's in a striking match, it's very exciting. His strikes are clean. He can hurt guys who aren't careful. De Ritter seems to be a fighter with some decent grappling skills, and he likes to keep it on the feet a bit. Or that could have just been from his last opponent. And he does seem a bit slower on the feet than Holland is. If he can get Holland down, I think he could have success, or I think he can have some success. But if he lets Holland stay up and work on the feet, I think he might end up getting stopped if he's not careful. So I'm going to lean towards. I want to lean towards Kevin Holland. We'll see how it goes, but De Ritter could get him down and submit him too. So that's it's just what it is. So moving up, we've got Beneil Dariush versus Renato Moicano. Now Dariush, staple in the lightweight division. He's been plagued by some injuries in his career, which is why I think he's not as high as he could have been. Solid striker, good takedown defense. He's kind of on a 2-fight skid right now, but it is against Charles Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan. So I can't really hold that against him because those are two of the top guys in the division, Moicano, well-rounded guy, great jiu-jitsu game. One of his staples is using his jiu-jitsu to land his ground and pound, and like he did to Benoit Saint Denis and Jalen Turner. That's one of the more interesting things. He's not just hunting submissions when he's got a person on the ground. He's keeping them on the ground, and he's landing heavy shots when he can, and he's really putting the hurt on them so he can land that submission. It's really impressive to watch when he's able to get his opponent down. Now, I think Moicano's striking is able to keep him competitive against Dariush as well. If he can stay competitive on the feet, hurt Dariush, and then get Dariush to the ground and land some damage, I think he's able to do that too. So I'm going to lean towards a Moicano victory, but I never really count out Dariush either. But with his last 2 fights, we'll just have to see what kind of state he comes in, but I'm still leaning towards Moicano. Next up, probably one of my favorite fights for this card, Jiří Procházka versus Jamahal Hill. Procházka, unorthodox striker, power in both of his hands. He's got a reckless come-forward style, which is super fun to watch. Willing to push through the fire to land his own shots. And he's very successful at it. Even if he's losing the fight, he can land his shots and really put the hurt on somebody. Jamahal Hill, southpaw striker, heavy hands, accurate shots. Both guys are complete opposite styles, I would say. And I really think it's a 50-50 matchup. But I think the last 2 fights of Jiří has shown guys what they can do to nullify his unorthodox striking just a bit. I think using the jab to the chest, because Jiří likes to squat down to level change. And I think those stiff jabs, leg kicks and stuff are going to be the way to counter him. And if Jamahal Hill, who I'm sure has done his research, can use that to his advantage, I think he can really have a lot of success on the feet. But at the same time, Jiří just needs to land that one good shot and have that guy stumbling before he can go in for the kill. So I'm going to lean towards Jiří to catch Hill with something unorthodox that Hill might not be expecting. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Hill is able to just keep it standing, keep him at the distance, and put the hurt on him either. So I'm going to lean towards Jiří, but I'm not going to be surprised either way with either outcome either. So moving up, we've got Merab Dvalishvili versus Umar Nurmagomedov. Now, Merab, current champ, relentless wrestling and pressure and takedowns coming at you for all 25 minutes of that fight. Cardio is insane. We haven't seen him do much in the striking game ever since he learned how to jog, apparently, and just gain insane amounts of cardio. So he goes for the takedowns. He's relentless with it. If he can get you on the ground, you're going to be getting kneed on the thighs all night. But other than that, that's all he's really shown lately. I know he knows how to strike, but he just doesn't use it because he doesn't have to, it seems. Umar Nurmagomedov, great defensive wrestler, great striker as well. Um, I think he has the skills, at least, to keep Merab off of him in the beginning. But I guess it's just going to depend on what can he hurt Merab when Merab is coming in, and can he last against Merab, who is going to be coming at him relentlessly, Unless Umar is able to control him on the ground with some grappling, I think it's going to be a long night for Umar. And if Umar is able to keep Merab at a distance with the striking or able to land something coming in, I could see him taking that win too. This is really a 50-50 fight. But just seeing what Merab can do to all these guys and makes them look normal. Oh, not even normal. He just makes it look like, God, his cardio is insane. The pace and the pressure that he puts on with these takedowns is insane. And at the same time, we know Umar's skilled. He took out Corey Sandhagen with the striking. He is in that, camp with all the Dagestanis, so he's training with incredibly skilled guys. But he also just doesn't have the wins under his belt either at the level that Merab has. So I think I'm actually going to lean towards Merab for this fight. I think Merab is going to be able to grind it out. I think he has a personal grudge against Umar because he had to go on like a 10-fight win streak before he got his title shot, And Umar's had 2 guys in the top 15, I think. I think for some reason I think Merab is going to be able to take this one. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised either way if Umar was able to take it, but I think Merab is going to be able to take this one. Moving up, we've got Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan. Now, this is technically their second fight. Arman Tsarukyan coming in for his debut early on in Islam's career. Went to the decision. He was able to hold his own against Islam's wrestling. And now, obviously, they've both been in the fight game a lot longer. Islam has some seriously good wins, and he's got some seriously good submissions. His striking is really improved. His takedowns are awesome. I think they're some of the best in the game. I mean, they are, just because he's the champ. His pace is pretty relentless. His wrestling, top-notch. Arman's wrestling is nothing to sniff at neither. He's got good, strong hands as well. It's a very interesting matchup. I think it's the best matchup to make in the lightweight division. But I think Islam has faced better opponents. Well, and some of the same opponents they've faced have been seriously different outcomes as well. I think if Islam can get into the position that Oliveira had Arman in, I don't think Arman sees the end of that fight and that kind of hold by Islam. I think Islam has improved a lot more, I think, in the division than Arman. I don't know if that's a fair thing to say, just because they're both fighting at an extremely high level. I just don't see anybody beating Makhachev right now, We'll see how it goes, but I'm going to lean towards Islam Makhachev taking this fight. Probably by finish. So, anyways, those are my predictions for the fight. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you think I'm stupid or if you think I'm wrong, I'd love to hear about it and hear about your opinions. And I will see you at the next one, guys.